Hi there, it's Craig here. Just enjoying a nice glass of homemade white wine. Delicious stuff. You know, some of you might want to actually get into home brewing, but don't have the courage or wherewithal to do that. So I've got a little bit of a fun thing for you to try here. And this is, you know, it could be fun or it could just be a cheap man's way of making some alcohol. Whatever way you want to look at it. This is called Inmate Brewing. That's because it originated in jails where they used to gather certain ingredients from the cafeteria and actually ferment them and make their own alcohol so they could get drunk in their jail cells, I guess. And God knows how they did that, but nonetheless, this is called Inmate Brewing. Basically what you're doing is you're taking a jug of regular fruit juice and you're turning it into wine, very simply. Now, the advantage of doing it this way is that you don't have to sanitize anything, okay? Because this is already sanitized inside here. And all you're really going to do is, is take off the top, take some of the juice out of here, and add some stuff to it so that it will turn into wine. Now, it's not going to be table wine like this, of course, and clear and everything like that, but certainly if you're in a pinch and you need, you want to have a little drink, this is a great way to do it. And it tastes pretty darn good too. And maybe later on you can get into this stuff. Okay, here's what you're going to need. Now, you need a jug of some sort of fruit juice. Now I'm using a 3.8 liter jug of cranberry cocktail, which basically consists of some sugars, some cranberry juice, and some grape juice. And there's no preservatives in here. That's important. Make sure you don't have any weird preservatives or anything like that in here, because that'll just destroy everything and it won't work. I think Welch's grape juice works really well with this. So if you want to try this, go out and get some of that and give it a go. But I found this cranberry cocktail, this no-name stuff here, quite successful as well. So if you can find that, I don't know if you have it in the States, but that's what I've got. And I bought the biggest one I could find, because what the heck, you may as well make as much as you can. Okay, so you have that. You need 2 cups of sugar. I use corn sugar, but you can use regular table sugar as well. I just have corn sugar because I use it when I make my beer, so it dissolves quicker, and I think it works a little bit better, but if you don't have that, just regular sugar will do. So you got your juice, your 2 cups of sugar, regular bread yeast, regular baking yeast, that's all you need. You can get the brewing yeast if you want to, but I'm trying to do this so that you can get everything you need from the supermarket. I don't want you to have to go to any specialty shops. I want you to be able to do this just for everything from buying everything from the store, okay? So this is regular baker's yeast. This happens to be Fleshman's, but whatever. Okay, so yeast, juice, sugar, and kind of the magic ingredient that I found that helps this to work a lot better is some, well, we'll leave that for a second, some raisins, okay, just regular, any kind of raisins, and or dates. Okay, you can use either one. I like the raisins because they're easy to find, but I also got dates because I don't know, I figured I didn't get very many dates when I was younger, so I'm making up for it here. But if you don't have the dates, just use the raisins. And what I did was I grabbed a good handful of raisins and I put them in a small pot full of about 1/2 inch of water, maybe a little more, and I boiled them. I boiled them for about 10 or 15 minutes, not a hard boil, but just a simmer, and then I sort of mashed them up with a fork, so that what I ended up with was this sort of a liquid sludge. Okay, actually smells kind of neat actually, but it's a liquid. It's the juice out of the raisins and the dates. Now what this does, I hope I can get it out of there. What this does is that it adds a nutrient to the brew. What I found was that just adding the yeast to this and the sugar, the yeast didn't have enough nutrients to keep on going, to keep on doing what it does, which what it does is it eats the sugars and creates carbon dioxide and alcohol. Okay, and I was finding that just using these two things and the yeast, I've had failed batches. So I found out from a good friend of mine that adding this nutrient from the real fruit will actually help the yeast and will produce guaranteed results. And I actually have a batch going on upstairs right now of the same exact thing, and it's going like crazy. Okay, so good advice there. Okay, so those are the ingredients: the juice, the sugar, the yeast, and some raisins and dates, or just raisins. You are going to need an airlock. Now I have an actual brewer's airlock here, but if you don't have an airlock, there's other things you can use, and I'll talk about that later on. An airlock basically is so that the carbon dioxide that's created here can escape, but no air can get in to contaminate this. That's what you want. So it's like a one-way valve. And if you don't have an actual airlock, don't worry. I'll explain later on what you can use. Again, stuff you can buy at the store. Just a regular store. Okay? So we got our raisins and our dates. I've already done that, so we'll put those out of the way. And you're going to need something to pour some of the juice into, because we have to leave some space at the top here when we actually do this. So I've just got the kids' whatever juices in the fridge here, and I'm just going to add this, and they'll just drink it. Okay? So let's get started. Now, once you open this, you don't want to breathe into it or contaminate it in any way, because it's sanitized and in here. And that's the beauty of this, is that you don't have to sanitize anything. These are all clean, but it's just sugar. I mean, I don't think we have to worry about sanitizing that. So what we're going to do is take the lid off of here. And we'll take the lid off of this thing. And I'm going to pour it out until it's about there, because we need some space here for this to happen. Because what's going to happen is that when this ferments, it's going to bubble and everything, and it needs room. There's going to be foam in here. It needs room to foam and do its thing. A little more. Don't forget, we're adding about 2 cups of sugar to this, so it's going to increase the volume as well. So take a little more out than... There we are. Set that aside. Just put that in the fridge later. Okay, so we took the juice out. We've got room up here. Now we're going to add our 2 cups of sugar. Sometimes this takes a little while. And what the sugar does is it gives the yeast more to eat, and therefore it will create more alcohol. You could do this without the sugar, but you only get about 4 or 5% alcohol. This way we're going to get an actual wine consistency, maybe 10% alcohol out of that. And corn sugar dissolves a lot easier than regular sugar, but again, you know, if you can't get corn sugar, then just use the regular stuff. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid back on, and I'm going to give it a good shake to dissolve all the sugar. See? Now this is room temperature juice. I did not put this in the fridge. And that's important. It has to be, it can't be cold or it won't work. Fermentation won't occur when it's cold. We want to make sure it's all dissolved. Okay, I'm sure that is, because corn sugar dissolves easily. Right, now we're going to put in our fruit concoction here. Now, I'm just going to try to use the lid as a strainer. If I get a couple of raisins in here or whatever, that's okay. Actually, what I'm going to do, because this is a really thick paste here, I let this evaporate a little too much. I'm just going to pour some of the juice in here. Now this is sanitized because it was boiling. Just going to pour some of the juice in there. Whoops, and mix it around. Right? Because it got kind of thick because I boiled it a little too long. Mix it around. And then we can use the lid and pour it back. And if you get a couple of lumps and raisins in there, it doesn't matter. all that nice juice from those nice fresh raisins and dates. And there we go. Okay, we can add the yeast now. We're all set, because we're going to shake it again anyways after we add this yeast. So some scissors. Just regular old baker's yeast. There we go. Great stuff. Put the lid on again and give it a good shake. Now I want you to shake this for a couple of minutes. Okay, make sure that lid's on tight, because I would like to incorporate the yeast as much as possible. Okay. There. So a couple of minutes, some of the yeast is going to sink to the bottom, and that's fine. But for the most part, we've got this incorporated. Now, let's talk about airlocks. I have a video about airlocks if you want to watch, learn all about them. I happen to have a real one. If you don't have an actual airlock or a way to get one, because what I did here was I took the lid off of one of these and I cut a hole in it. Or actually what I used is a soldering iron or a wood burner. And I just burned a hole, made it smooth, and then I got a regular airlock that you use when you make your beer. And I just got it in there nice and tight, and all I gotta do is screw that on. And I'm done. Now I sanitized this. Matter of fact, I'll do that again. And if you're into brewing and you have some airlocks, then you probably have some sanitizer too. You're going to want to sanitize that. Now, if you are doing this and you don't have any brewing equipment at all, including an airlock, I told you I would make sure you could do this. An airlock can be fabricated out of a condom. So what you do is once you've got this all together and you shook it and everything's all mixed up, you take this lid off and you stretch the condom, you take the condom out, roll it, unroll it just a little bit, stretch it over the mouth of this thing, make sure it's good and sealed, and then you wait. And don't go to bed or anything like that. Like wait about 6, maybe 12 hours, I don't know, or overnight, I guess. What's going to happen is this is going to start fermenting. The condom's going to start inflating with carbon dioxide. So you'd like to be around, I think, to watch this, because you don't want it to, I don't know how long it would take for it to burst. But so you wait for the condom to inflate a little bit, and then you poke a hole in the end with a pin. Poke a hole in the condom with a pin. There's your airlock. There's always going to be carbon dioxide escaping from this container, coming out of the little hole, and that way nothing can get in, no air can get in to contaminate your juice. When it's finished, once the condom has, once this is finished fermenting, the condom will basically sort of deflate a little bit. Now condoms are sterile as well, so you don't have to worry about sanitizing anything. So it's a really cool way to do this without any fuss. All right, and in about 3 weeks, the condom will start deflating, or somewhere around there, and then at that point, you just wash the lid off, keep the lid, wash it off good, put the lid back on, and you've got your brew. Okay, and you can drink it. It's not going to be clear; it'll be cloudy, but it's drinkable and it tastes pretty darn good. Now, there's some things you can do to this to preserve it, but I'll talk about that in the next video when this is done and we actually go to the next stage. You can drink it right away, but there are some things you can do to, for instance, there'll be sediment at the bottom here. Sediment always occurs when you ferment things, and yeast falls to the bottom, it dies, and it goes down there and stuff falls down. So you don't want to drink that. So you can take this and pour it into another container, but don't pour in the sediment, and then you'll have nice clean juice that you can, or wine that you can drink. And you have to put it in the fridge, because if you don't put it in the fridge, there can be some slight fermentation going on in there. And you've got this lid on, it could actually start to bulge, and who knows, right? So Once you've finished and you put the lid back on, stick it in the fridge and it will stop fermenting. The other alternative too, a lot of people do, is they freeze it. And I actually do that as well. Freezing it kills all the yeast cells by destroying the cell membranes of the yeast. So that's a surefire way to make sure that this is never going to ferment again. And you won't have to worry about having a tight lid on. But if you don't want to do that, just put it in the fridge and maybe once a day just loosen it off and let the little pressure out, put it back. And as long as you're going to drink it, you know, in the next week, within the next week, you're fine. There's also a third way you can do this. If you can find the materials, you get a rubber bung with a hole, same as what's on the bottom of these airlocks, right? You get a clear plastic hose, and again, you sanitize this with some rubbing alcohol or bleach, whatever. Make sure you rinse it off really well. You put that in your lid, like same as this. Okay, cut a hole in the lid and do that. And then you put the other end into a bottle full of water. And just fill up a bottle, like a wine bottle or something like that, or, you know, beer bottle full of water. Put this in, and that way the gas can escape and it will bubble through the water, but no air can get back into here to contaminate it. So that's another, if you don't want to go and buy a condom, then that's another way you can do it if you can find that material. Okay, so I'm ready to put my airlock on and let this ferment. Nice and tight. You want to make absolutely sure that this is so tight, this rubber thing is in there and everything's nice and sealed. Otherwise, your airlock won't bubble and you'll be confused and you won't know what's going on. Just put the water in there. And snap on the lid. And there you have it. Let that sit in a warm place, like the warmest room in your house, for as long as it takes to ferment. My airlock is actually, I'm going to just unscrew that for a second. I don't like when it sucks in like that. There. Set that aside, and there we go. Okay. Actually, I have one that's already fermenting. Well, no, I'm gonna go get that, and I'll bring it down, and I'll show you guys. Hang on a second. That right there. So my airlock is steadily bubbling. Right now it's disturbed because I moved it around. And there's a foaming going on top, and a ring around the side of that's called a cake of dead yeast. Right around the surface there. Mine's actually gone because, again, I moved it, so some of it got mixed in with it, but that's okay. And if you put your ear up to it, I don't know whether the microphone will pick this up. You hear that? You hear it fizzing. It's going like hell in there. It's great stuff. So there you go. Homemade Inmate Brew. It'll give you about 10% alcohol, maybe 8 to 10% alcohol. It tastes pretty good. It cost me about $5 to make what? I think it turns out to be about 3 or 4 bottles of wine. And you put it in the fridge, and hey, there you go. Inmate Brew. So happy brewing. Have fun. Take care. I'll see you next time. Cheers.